because they're not allowed. You can't. Man United are in a situation now where they can spend all the money that they've got. Depending on how much debt you've got, there's a lot of ways how you can get around this, and there's a lot of ways that you can say, I feel like if you're in £1.5 billion debt, you should have to spend every time you spend on a transfer, you have to spend that on your debt as well. Do you get it? So if you spend 60 million on Cunha, you have to spend 60 million on your debt. If you spend 60 million on another transfer, you have to spend 60 million on your debt. That's one way to do it. That no matter what you spend, you have to spend it on your debt as well. That's the first thing. The second thing would be is how do these smaller clubs that get taken over compete with the big teams? Because Man City have been spending money for years. They would never have got to the heights that they've reached unless they. How is a team going to overtake Man United or Liverpool? Unless they spend their, unless they, it's impossible. Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool are going to be at the top forever because they bring in the most money. That's unfair.
I don't think of it like that though. I feel like it's more because when you look at it, let's be honest, the London clubs for one have the best opportunity to make that type of money because London ultimately a more expensive city. So when you go up north, the cheaper it gets, the harder it is. So we can look at a club like Newcastle are in a position where they've got loads of money. We all know they've got the richest owners, but they're unable to spend money because they can't balance their books, whether they get in through sponsorships. The only other way to balance their books and actually look like the club's making high amounts of revenue is through player sales. So
yeah,
isn't it like, yeah, it's slightly unfair, but also don't you think you have to have those things?
No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't.
To stop the likes of, let's just say, Newcastle, who are in a very good position, that they can just come in, and if the owners really wanted to, they could just start flooding through transfer money.
Yeah, but the situation is within Newcastle. Newcastle are in a situation where they couldn't heavily invest, and they've had to sell players like Anderson and all these players that they would have kept, and they can't build on this. Whereas the other side of it is that, oh, what happens when teams go into debt and they go bankrupt and teams and they go into administration and stuff like that? That's the other side of it. Unfortunately, that happens in life. People do go bankrupt in life. People have money issues in life. Unfortunately, that's just part of it. But another part of life is teams, you can spend money that you earn or that you have. I don't only have to spend my own money.
But no, you're not understanding, yeah? You got fans that's been here for 100 years supporting this club. You got owner that comes out of nowhere, sweeps you off your feet, spends all his money, gets your club in debt, and then now your club that you've been supporting, your granddad's been supporting, everyone's been supporting, is now being thrown out the league, bro, because now they're in debt.
Don't introduce me to a vibe you can't maintain.
I understand.
Remember, it's the fans.
But how do the smaller clubs, how do clubs like Everton, Newcastle, these teams, how do they overtake Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United?
This happened before, you know.
How do they do it? They've got to be shrewd of their business, but no one else has to be shrewd of their business. And what's going to happen now? Teams like Brentford or teams like I say, Everton now or Aston Villa in this situation right now, they now have to start selling their best players. They've got one of the youngest teams, one of the strongest squads in the league, and it's looking like, yeah, if we can build on that and start spending, we can push on. They didn't get Champions League. They now might have to sell Rodgers or Watkins.
But that's a risk. That's a calculated risk that they decided to take.
What do you mean?
Like they decided to spend, for example, in the summer in January, they decided to spend in a way that would help them get. So basically,
they had they were
operating I get what you're saying, but
operating at 97% wage to revenue turnover.
Crazy.
That's the
crazy.
ratio. That's
but how do they overtake Man United?
Over time.
So, like, for example, I think a club that's doing it really well is Brighton.
No. See, I disagree. What you're saying, a club's doing it really well. Brighton are doing it exceptionally well because they have to. I'm saying a team like Newcastle have spent just as shrewdly as Brighton have.
Yeah, but the issue with
Newcastle are nearly there, bro. Newcastle are nearly there.
They haven't spent for 4 windows.
But they've done so well. Then they're nearly, bro. They got into this is the Champions League they're in now, so they're there now.
No, Newcastle. If they were allowed to spend, they've had to sell players.
No, but
Newcastle,
that's the point.
Yeah,
though.
but look what they are
Going
now.
into the champion. So what happens, D, is when you as you progress in the league, ultimately you're gonna get more money. So your spend, like I said, the amount of debt and the spend that you could do is higher. Newcastle going into the Champions League, and what Aston Villa, what Hooks was gonna say is they banked on going into the Champions League. So that operating ratio they were going to have was going to be a lot lower because they've got Champions League money that will balance the books more. Newcastle now, when they're out of Champions League this season, when they didn't play no Europe, that messed them up completely because they couldn't spend, because now their funds went from maybe bringing in 200, 300 million for a match day revenue to now about 100 million. So now what will happen is Newcastle going back into the Champions League is going to give them that extra money they need to then go and start spending.
You're explaining the rules to me. I get that. What my question is, how does a team overtake Man United, Arsenal, and Liverpool? That's my question.
How are teams doing that prior to PSR?
They're not. Man United.
You can look at Tottenham then. How did Tottenham come from a team 20 years ago who was at that level financially, by the way, to now being at the same financial level as the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, like one of the top giants in world football? It's through making smart acquisitions, through doing things business-wise over time. Over time. It takes about 15 years to get to the point.
That's not right.
Well, hold on. What do you expect? You think that someone, you think ownership is coming and saying what they want?
Of course they should.
No way.
Of course they should. Why should the owner that have money and wants to invest? Because you got to remember, as much as you've got bad owners, you've got good as well. So why should the owner not be allowed to come and spend his money on the club and he wants to take it to the top of the tree? Why should that not be allowed?
Because they're thinking about the best of the football clubs.
Why is that the best for the football clubs?
Because you got to appreciate, not everyone who buys a football club understands football.
How to run them.
Like you had a scenario where Leyton Orient was very close to getting liquidated because they had like 250k worth of unpaid tax.
After Barry Hearn sold them, they were pissed.
Because the brother came in, some Italian brother, I think it was Italian. He came in, he bought them up, and he started doing mad stuff like sacking bare managers, not paying taxes, and then he just bust out. And then they was left with his debt, and they nearly went into a point where they liquidated. Now that happened in what? I think there was a League One team at the time.
Berry.
Berry actually. There's no more Berry. Berry's vanished. Like they're gone. They lost their club. Now the reason why it's not so much of an impact is because they're not Premier League teams. Not even Championship teams. But when you get to the Premier League, let's just say, for example, if we use Newcastle for an example, they're owned by someone who is richer than every other owner in the Premier League combined. So if we let them spend all the money that they want to spend, what if it doesn't work? And then they just go, oh, you know what? I don't really care because I got billions and billions and billions. You know what? Yeah, I don't care about Newcastle no more. I'm just gonna
disagree with
leave it someone else, and then Newcastle end up in a situation where they can't recover. That's Newcastle.
You keep saying it on the wrong side of the coin. You keep saying
you have to prepare for the worst. You can't prepare for the
best. No. You have to prepare for the worst. But I'm saying what you're basically saying is that a team like Man City would never have been Man City. So a team like Man United now, Man United have finished 17th, and they're allowed to spend more than Newcastle that finished third or fourth.
I don't think that necessarily is the case.
The reason why is because they can bring in more revenue. It's very simple because they're a bigger club. So this benefits the bigger clubs.
No, but the difference is as well, where they're kind of lucky that Ineos came in, because if Ineos didn't come in, the Glazers wouldn't have done this. Jim actually put some of Ineos' own money, pumped it into Manchester United, so they will be super clear of PSR. So they're super clear of PSR. That's why they're able to spend, because he injected his own money into the club.
Hold on, wait, Hooks. So you're saying the owners put money into the club to avoid this PSR stuff.
Like, I don't know the technicalities.
I don't know how this works.
With the Man
I'm
United one, it's not exactly that. Man United had
I'm
debt
lost.
in it. The Glazers didn't invest in Man United. Man United didn't. The Glazers only ever used the money that was made by Man United to invest back into the club.
They were taking dividends out though.
Yeah, they were taking dividends out, but they never actually invested their own money once. When Jim Ratcliffe took over Man United, he put a big fund that was going to be investment for the club that was actually used as an investment into the club. I don't know however 100 millions it was, but then that investment then obviously gets used. They'll pull that out and put that into the club over the next 3 to 5 years, however they do it. And so that's why they're in a good position PSR-wise, because obviously they went through a new buy, just like Chelsea when Todd Bowley brought them. They had all these debts and stuff. It was fine because once Todd Bowley said, "Yeah, I'm pumping 500 million into the club," it's not a problem. They're going through that sale process, so they can do that. But obviously, for our owners aren't going to pump loads of money into the club.
Yeah, but it's easy. It's easy for us to like it because we're all support bigger clubs.
But even when you say that, like Cookson said, so I've got the PSR up in front of me, and you can see here, obviously the big clubs are fine. Chelsea is the highest at 300 million safe. Brighton's second highest. Then you got Man City, Tottenham, United, Arsenal. But then below that, you've got the likes of West Ham, Palace, Nottingham Forest, and then Newcastle. See, Newcastle is still even operating at a point lower than the likes of West Ham, Crystal Palace, and Nottingham Forest. And that's through their own fault. That is just what you can look at. They're obviously not doing stuff right, but whether it's behind
but
that's
not. That's not what.
Because they're not bringing in enough through sponsorships. They're not making enough money.
No, I don't think that's what it is. I think what it is they're taking risks because they have to. That's what they're doing. They're taking risks to try. Because if they had to stay, if they, like you said, like Nottingham Forest or Everton or some of these teams, or if these teams were to stay like at the level that they're actually at, they would never progress in the league ever. They have to take risks because of PSR. They have to take risks.
But you want everyone. See, so what you're saying, yeah. If we let this happen, you can spend what you want. Then we open up the whole thing for just every rich person to come in there and buy up every club and let's use it as their plaything. That's what's gonna happen, bro.
You don't
have to spend what you want. That's what's gonna happen.
But what you actually don't realize is the flip side. If you remove PSR, there's even less chance of those teams catching up because then Arsenal,
the bigger clubs just going to spend more money.
Man United, Chelsea go, we can spend.
No way.
They'll get new owners. They'll get the proper owners.
No way.
The biggest problem will be things like when these clubs just start to, we're going to pay this player this amount of wages. And then they realize, we can't even afford to pay him this amount of wages for his whole contract. It's not affordable. What's going to happen then? You just decide that you're not paying a player's wages no more. Like
I gave an example of what we should do already. I said, when you spend the money on a player, you have to spend that same amount on your debt.
What about the wages?
What if you don't have the wages?
That's what I'm saying. But I'm talking about for teams like Man United that are 1.5 billion in debt or whatever they are.
Yeah, no, that's all fine. So let's remove Man United from.
Let's remove Man United. Man United is the reason why I'm having this convo.
Yeah, but they're the anomaly. So let's remove the anomaly.
They're not the anomaly. They're in the league.
I don't think it's fair to say they're anomaly.
They're not an anomaly. They're in the league.
No, wait. Look, just saying, everyone has debt. It's just how they manage.
Everyone's got debt.
All these teams have got debt. They just manage it very differently. Man United's debt's more renowned and it's more known because the Glazers just left. But like, for example, Tottenham, who are in a very good position PSR wise, we've got a huge amount of debt on our stadium, but it's good debt, as in we're paying it off at the right times across however many years they got the deal in. So it's not about having to pay off your debt and stuff. It's just making sure you have enough money that your club is bringing in so you can spend. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that rule.
But for example, in Arsenal's case, like Arsenal's not in debt to other people. Arsenal's in debt to the owners. Like Arsenal's in debt to KSE because Arsenal took loans from KSE, which KSE put interest on. So it's not real debt. Like
but that was just real debt. It's real debt, bro.
That's not.
If you want to sell it, you owe them money.
It is. You're wrong.
Debt. It only becomes real debt if KSE sell Arsenal. But if they sell Arsenal,
no, it's real debt. It doesn't matter if you take a loan from your mum or from your friend. It's still a loan.
Yeah, it's still debt, bro. Can't just wipe it off. I'm not gonna say, by the way, you don't need to pay no more when they sell it. You still want the money.
you'd have to write the debt off. The debt's there. It's real debt.
So obviously, D feels very strongly about this, and it seems like,
Because it
Man
favors
United,
the bigger clubs. It's out of order on the smaller clubs. I'm in favor of the underdog story, man. I think it's unfair on the smaller clubs. Teams like Newcastle, teams like Everton, teams like
no, Everton's got very,
stop
very
using
rich owners,
Everton,
by the
bro.
way.
I hate Everton. Stop using them.
They've got loads of money, and they've used their money badly as to why they're in.
They've used the money bad, bro.
Like,
Everton's
terrible.
a bad
If
example.
you actually look at Everton's spending, they've spent a lot of money.
Ancelotti, they got bare players at one stage. They're the superstars.
But we've got teams that have benefited from this before all of this, like Abramovich, what he did with Chelsea, Man City.
Yeah.
Like, we've got teams that have benefited from it.
I thought that was wrong. I thought that was wrong, bro. I thought
no one else is allowed to benefit from it.
That's why they changed the rules, bro. They changed the rules because this.
Yeah, but they're changing the rules now. But they're changing the rules now. But you've changed the rules when teams are in positions now.
No, but the thing is, you can't go back in time. It's like anything in life, isn't it? Once you realize that's wrong, you've got to change it now. We can't go back and punish someone now because them rules weren't there. It's new rules now, so I can't, bro. I just don't want everyone just to like football. Right now, I'm still enjoying football. But it's getting to a stage where I'm not enjoying football because, like you said, like Man United, like they're still spending big money, like they're big. Like that things that annoy me. Like you shouldn't be there to come 15th or 16th, and things like that annoy me. Things like that piss me off, and especially when a new club get new money, that annoys me more than anything. That annoys me more than anything.
Right.
When Man City came through with their money, that pissed me off.
I agree. I can't even lie. When you get these new clubs come through with like fake, and to me, it's fake money. It's a Monopoly thing. Do you know what? To me, it reminds me of, you know, when you're playing Monopoly, and then all of a sudden one of your friends kicks up fuss. Oh, I'm not playing no more. They give all their properties and money to the next person.
You can't do that. That's what I'm saying. So
wait. And then that person now wins the game. That person
you don't play Monopoly properly. That's not how you're meant to play Monopoly.
That's what people do. That's what people do.
In Monopoly, you're meant to auction. You're meant to auction every. So when someone comes out, you buy.
That's not how it plays because
you're not playing it right.
But that's what I'm saying. These people, these clubs are not going to play to the rules. They're just going to do what they want.
They're taking money at the bank. They're just taking. They're the bankers. They're taking money at the bank.
They're not playing to the rules now. They're not playing to the rules now.
You're saying to have no rules. So I'm saying what I'm saying is literally there is
no. I didn't say have no rules. I said every time you buy I've said it fair times. I didn't say have no rules. I said every time you buy a player, you have to spend that money on your debt. I said that.
Okay, but there's gonna be teams that don't have debt, so that money.
That doesn't make sense.
What teams don't have debt? I'll Google it. What teams don't have debt?
They're not gonna have high amounts of debt, so they could pay off.
No, it's not about high amounts. You're gonna think twice.
You're saying if they buy players, ultimately, the more players you buy, eventually they're gonna. What do you mean? Like they're
gonna hear what I'm saying.
Buy out their debt.
You can't hear what I'm saying because you're not listening to what I'm saying.
I can hear what you're saying. I heard exactly what you said. You said buy a player and then spend the same money on debt. So eventually they're gonna run out of debt. And eventually they're going to buy players and spend them out of debt.
That would actually stop people from buying players because our transfer budget is only 120 million. Okay, I can't buy a 60 million player now because then all my transfer budget's gone because I have to put 60 million.
That's what happened. That's what. Hold
on. You're looking at one way. So what if a multi-billionaire oil merchant comes to take over here, wipes the debt out? Now he can just spend whatever he wants.
He's not allowed to do that. He's not because you can't use your own money. You're not allowed to do it because you can't use your own money anyway.
But that's what you wanted, though. Spend what they want. You wanted them to spend what they want.
No, I'm saying that I think owners should be able to spend their money, but they're not allowed right now. So I'm saying the only way you make it fair is if you spend money on a player, you have to spend that same amount on your debt.
Yeah, but that's what they said. If they wipe out the debt, they wipe the debt out now.
They're not allowed to do that.
But you're telling them to spend their own money. That's what you're saying.
Oh, am I speaking a different language? Did you hear what
I said? You said they should be able to spend their own money, yeah? So I'll come here, I'll wipe the debt out of my own money now, yeah? Gone. Debt's gone. Yeah? My own money. Now I can spend my money on whatever I want.
You're going into if the rules are not there.
Yeah, I'm going with what you're going on. You're saying they should be able to spend what they want. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but you're saying two things at different points. I'm talking about.
No, I'm saying one thing. I'm going on, but I'm basing on what you're saying.
The point I'm making is when I was talking about spend money and pay the other one on your debt, I was talking about with the rules here. If you're talking about no rules, you're saying if they wipe out the debt, then what? That they can spend what they want.
No, but if I'm going by what you said,
yeah,
spend money on that and your debt. What if I just come in and wipe the debt straight away then?
Yeah, You're saying two different things. When I'm saying spend money on the player and on your debt, I'm saying that with the rules now. I'm not saying that when there's no rules.
Why can't I wipe out the debt now, straight away, before I start?
I'm
Why
saying,
can't I
I'm
wipe out the
saying,
debt?
Man United, for example, now that are in £1.5 billion debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying they spend 60 on Bremo and then they have to spend 60 on their debt. They're gonna think twice about spending 60 on Bremo.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes
I
sense.
hear it,
But then,
if what I'm saying, if the new owners took over,
whole market of football, because then players' prices are gonna have to come down because ultimately you're spending double the amount every time you spend.
I don't know
So
I don't know if what I'm saying is confusing. I don't really get it. I don't understand.
No, you're not getting what we're saying, bro. Because I get what you're saying, but that's gonna impact the whole transfer, the whole world of transfer.
That's what happens.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Man
United can't be 1.5 billion in debt, but because they make more than other clubs, they can spend what they want. Doesn't make sense.
But it depends who they got the debt to, innit? Depends who's negotiating the debt.
Because they make so much money in revenue, the banks will and obviously the authorities will say, oh yeah, they can always cover it because they make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's real. That's real life, though, isn't it?
They can always go further.
Well, the thing, that's real life. See, if I went to the bank to get a loan, or Pogba went to the bank to get a loan, he's gonna get a bigger loan than me because it doesn't matter what it is. That's what I'm saying. So that's real life, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's how it works. Until I get my credit up somehow, wheeling and dealing, and then that's how life is, man. But the thing is, I just don't like football right now. Is at a stage where I'm really not interested in football because the amount of money people are spending in it, new owners, football's not football no more. I used to like to see little gems. Now you can't even buy a gem. Like look at Southampton back in the day. Matt Letizia stayed there for the whole of his life. That won't happen no more because the big clubs will just come in and buy him now. Bro, I can't, bro. Football's getting dead, bro.